Warrior Super Edition Firestar's Quest by Aaron Hunter, Chapter 18. It's all right, Firestar man. We haven't come to harm you. We just want to talk. Mooney glared at him from huge, pale blue eyes. He must once have been a big, powerful cat, but now he was shrunken and scrawny. His gray fur was thin and starting, his muzzle white with age. Well, I don't want to talk to you, he growled. Whirling around, he saw stumble back into his den. Its gray pelt merged into the shadows. All Firestar could see clearly was his pale eyes gleaming with a mixture of fear and anger. They were exactly the same color of the eyes of the Sky Clan leader he had seen in his dream. He felt so close to Sky Clan. It was as if a single paw stab would lead them. They careful of warriors. Slowly, with his claws sheeting, he padded up to the tail length of the den. Firestar came to stand on his shoulder. Please, she mewed. There's so much we want to ask you. Mooney replied with dissonance. Leave me alone. Is that what you really want? Sandstorm's voice was gentle. Haven't you been alone long enough? We want to help you. Go away, growled the old cat. I don't need your help. I don't need any other cats. This is my life now. Firestar knew he had bullied the old warrior into answering questions, but Mooney had also suffered enough at the paws of the kitty pets, and probably any rogues or loners would come across him too. Besides, he looked quite capable of living any attacker or nasty scratch. Firestar wanted to earn his respect, not his hostility. Fighting wasn't the answer. Backing his tail to Sandstorm, he withdrew a few paces down the path. Come on, let's leave him alone, he murmured. Sandstorm's tail whipped in surprise. We only just found him. Yes, but we're not doing any good here. We'll never force him to talk when protecting his own den. Then what are we going to do? Sandstorm asked. The moon would be full in four sunrises, Firestar explained. We must go back to the cave and wait until he comes to the gorge. He may not be defense out in the open, and at the time we gather he might be more willing to talk about his ancestors. Sandstorm blinked thoughtfully. You're right. I'm sure he'd never break the gathering truth. Firestar dipped his head to the shadows beneath the tree roots before he turned away from Mooney's den. Maybe at the full moon we'll find out we need to know, he murmured. Firestar hurled himself into the cave with a mouthful of feathers and carried them where Sandstorm was lighting your nest with bracken. I found this on the cliff top, he told her. This was a scent of fox. I think I mustn't cut a bird. Fox! Sandstorm gave me the worried look from her pale green eyes. I hope there weren't any foxes around here. There are foxes everywhere, Firestar man. Anyway, the feathers should make the nest a bit more comfortable. We really need moss. Sandstorm gave the bracken a disfigured prod with one paw. Ferns alone aren't nearly as good, but there doesn't seem to be any moss all around here. Why don't we go down the stairs beside the river? Firestar suggested. I could go get a drink. Sandstorm looked doubtful. It's worth a try. She took the lead of the two cats, heading down the trail to the bottom of the gorge. The heavy rain of the day before it passed, and the sky was blue again with a shuddering of puffy white clouds. Beside the river, puddles gleaming in hollows in the rock. Firestar made a sandy slope where the river had scooped out and in the bank and jerked back quickly as its paws sank deep into the mud. Master, he exclaimed, shaking his paw. The Sky Clan get their paws filthy every time they wanted to drink. Sandstorm let out a faint paw of amusement. If they weren't as impatient as you, they could find the best places like this, she added, waving her tail as broad fretlock to gently into the water. Even kids can drink safely from here. Yes, they could. Firestar patted down the sunken rock as it crouched to left with Sandstorm at the side. We still haven't found any moss, Sandstorm said it again, twitching droplets from her whiskers. Let's try farther downstream. They hadn't explored this stretch of the river before. Before they got many paws up, they had to pick their way through the huge boulders that came from them in the water. Sandstorm whipped her paw across one of them, then exclaimed a faint redness smear on his fur. It's like a tiny moss, she sniffed. What good is that lining for a nest? SkyClan would have a hard time living here without moss, Forrester pointed out. It's not just important for lining nests. You need the moss to carry water to kids and elders. Sandster nodded. I bet this guy used it to wash wounds. That was one mystery about the Lost Clan, Forrester mused, as he and May padded on. Even more than before, he couldn't wait for the night of the full moon when Mooney might be able to give them some answers. Farther downstream, the river curled on the jubbly spur of rock. Forrester clawed his way up it, listening to Sandster spitting a noise and scrambled after him. I was wearing the skin of my pats, she complained. From the top of the rock, Forrester could see the next trench of water. The gorge had grown wider. There was a flat, pebbly pressure that gave to the trees and bushes growing between the river and the cliff face. This looked like a better place for prey, he mewed. I couldn't imagine how SkyClan managed to feed themselves just from— Get down! Sandstrom interrupted, slapping him across the shoulder with her tail. Forrester fled him against the rock. What is it? He whispered. Sandster jerked his tail to the underground edge of the river. Forrester saw the branches shaking. Then a massive tomcat emerged, his very darker shade of ginger than Forrester's flame-colored pelt. He carried a piece of fish bone in his jaws. Sorry, Sandster muttered. I thought it might be a fox. No, just another rogue. Forrester roasted. Maybe you should go and talk to him. The ginger Tom was heading rapidly downstream, slipping against the gap between the bushes and the cliff. Forrester wasn't sure if he had even spotted him. Soon he was out of sight. We'll never catch him, Sandster mewed. And if we did, he'd probably think it was daily prey. The cats around here aren't especially desperate to make friends. She was right, Forrester sighed, frustrated, gazing at the spot where the ginger Tom had vanished. He slid through the rock and stared through the bushes, tasting the air for prey. The sun was richer than the top of the gorge. He could discuss the mouse, full as squirrel, but the strongest were all from birds. It pricked his ears at a rustling sound close by and turned his head to see a black bird pecking up at the derbies at the edge of the bushes. He dropped into the hunter's crowds, but as he began to creep for the blackbird cocked his head, his tiny bright eyes fixed on him. Forrester lunged himself at it, paws intended, but the blackbird shouting out in alarm and wiggled away his head. Forrester hissed, remembering the sparrow he'd lost a few days before, and the brain rogue interrupted him. Catching birds was always harder than catching prey on the ground. But there wasn't much choice. All he wanted to go hungry. A few tame lengths above the riverbank, thrush was picking a worm out of the damp patch of earth. Sandstrom was already prowling toward it. Intent on his own prey, he thrush ever noticed her. Sandstrom pounced, and her claws met in his neck. Forrester bounded up to her. Well done, I lost mine, he added roughly. Never mind, we can share. Sandstrom pulled the thrush toward him. There's plenty of prey here. Still no moth, though, Forrester mewed, looking at the beer loft beside the river. The SkyClan must have managed some other way, Sandstrom pointed out sensibly. Forrester tried to imagine the empty riverbank alive with cats ritually hunting, training apprentices, living by the warrior code the cat in the forest has done uncountable seasons. If Mooney really was the last SkyClan warrior, what could any do to rebuild the lost clan? Full moon tonight. Forrester emerged from the warrior's cave. The dawn chill reminded him the green leaf was drawing to an end. It was just enough to light a snake up the cliff on the opposite side of the river, a sniff bridge flecking his fur against his eyes. Got to be ready to meet Mooney. Sandstrom, still curled to the nest, answered in a way to yawn. He won't be here until moon high. Go back to sleep. Her green eye was no more than slits, and Forrester watched it closely, completely, and he wrapped her tail tip above her nose. The nest looked tempting, but Forrester felt so restless to lie down again. His butt itched to be doing something. I'll go and find us some Frisco, he mewed. Sandstrom ears twitched too slow that she had heard. Luck was firestar, but he scrambled at the cliff. He taught himself near to know the mouse and killed it before he had a chance to learn. Striking the earth over, he crawled through the bushes, but there was no other prey about. By the time he emerged on the other side of the thickets, the sun was edging above the top of the tulip place, flooding the cinches serpent with a warm light and glittering on monsters racing past the tulip nets in the distance. Forrester wasn't but further and further in the direction before. Without consciously deciding, he found his paws when carrying him toward the tulip place. He wasn't trying to hunt anymore, just scouting the unfamiliar territory. Darting into the shelter of the gorge fish for cover, he was met by furious hissing and applause past his nose, the claws missing him by the length of mouth length. A Firestar reached back in astonishment. A tabby she-cat crouched in front of him, her cream and brown neck fur bristling and amber eyes glaring. Her sensual Firestar she was a rogue. "Keep your paws off me!" she spat. "I'm sorry," Firestar dipped his. "I didn't see you there." The she-cat relaxed silently, but look was still unfriendly. "Stupid furball! Just a bit more careful next time." She had stood and began to stuck her tail in the air. "Hang on," Firestar bounded forward and caught up with her. "I want to talk to you. I need to know." "I don't want to talk to you," the she-cat interrupted, sounding just like Mooney. "Go away and leave me alone." To show she meant it, she picked up speed and she was racing across the spaddy ground toward the tulip nets. Firestar stood looking after her, tail lashing in frustration. Where every place is hostile. None of them seemed to care about one another. This wasn't trace of warrior code left. Apart from the two kitty pets, all cats had seen the rogues and through. A heavy stone seemed to settle in his heart. Ever seen the fighting new skyline cats living together, troubled and defended, but still stubborn, surviving and climbed to the warrior code. Now he relaxed. He was wrong. Skyclimb was gone, lost season before he ever came to this place. "Why have you sent me here?" he wailed silently, not knowing if he was speaking to Sky Clan or to the Sky Clan cat who had hunted his pasta for so long. There was no reply. Turning back toward the gorge, Firestar spotted the two kitty pets, Boris and Cherry, sitting side by side on a tulip fence. He thought he was watching him. He couldn't see any point in going to speak to them. They would be pleased to see after the encounter at the cliff top. He just hoped they had learned their lesson and would stay away from the Mooney in the future. Mooney was their last hope of discovering anything about the lost clan. He and Sandra would do best to persuade him to tell him what he knew that night. Then, once they found what happened to Sky Clan, they could go home. No cat could do more. Sky Clan was lost forever. Firestar leapt across the cliff and landed in the jutting rock. During the day, the last woods of cloud had disappeared, and now a silver pelt blazed through the clear sky and gleamed up river far below. The moon, still low in the sky, covered everything with silver sheen and cast Firestar's shadow huge beside him. "If Mooney's seen us here, he might not come," Sandstrom meowed, leaping away to gap the sand beside Firestar. "Do you think we should hide?" "Good idea." Firestar pointed his tail toward a heap of boulders with the flat log met the cliff face. "Over there." He paddled across and slid into deep shadows. Sandstrom squeezed in beside him. Through a gap between two of the boulders, they could see most of the surface jutting rock and the last section of snowy trail that led up from the gorge. Now there was nothing to but wait. The moon crawled higher in the sky and Moon's shadow grew shorter. Firestar felt his legs practically cramped. He couldn't get given anything for a good stretch. At last he heard the soft set of paws. The old gray cat sat in the bend of the trail. His movements were stiff and painful, his belly sagged toward the ground, and his tail dragging the dust. Yet he held his tail high, and the moonlight crushed the pieces of silver. "You'll never manage to leave," Sandstrom whispered in Firestar's ears. Mooney paused a few tail lengths from the end of the trail and raised his eyes to the stars. Then he started forward again, somehow managed to pick up speed, then launched himself flying leaf over the rift. His fur struck the rock, and for a few hot bits he hung over the gap, paws scrambling to hurry himself up. Firestar fell for Sandstrom muscled hands as she were about to dash out and help him, but before she could do the move, he caught in a massive heat and hurled himself to safety. He stood still for a moment, panting, then padded forward to sit in the middle of the rock. Lifting its head, he turned face to the moon. It sounded like a cat made of shadows, outlined against a shining white circle in the sky. Mooney began to speak very softly. Firestar and Sandstrom crept forward they could hear what he was saying. "Spirits of cats who have gone before," Mooney mewed. "I'm sorry I'm the only cat left when it was on so noble clan. I'll try to persuade the way of the warrior until my last breath. But I fear when I die, it will die with me, and the memory of Sky Clan will be lost forever." He looked up, as he were listening for a reply that never came. At last he heaved a long sigh, letting his tail drop, and as it motionless when the moon began to slide down the sky. Firestar could not interrupt the silent vigil. For how many seasons had Mooney lived alone, surrounded by cats who tormented him? How long he tried to live by the warrior code and kept alone the memory of Sky Clan. At last the moon began to dip below the tulip nest on the horizon. First, when they stepped forward, when the old cat turned his head, his eyes glowing like moon. I know you're there, he meowed. I'm not so old that I can't pick up the scent. First, her ear prickled. I felt awkward, and the apprentice caught eavesdropping. He just answered, emerged from the beside the boulders and finished for the old cat. First did the business. Greeting, Mooney. That is not my name, the old cat interrupted. Standing up, shadow lit against her lock and vanished at the bottom of the gorge. My name is Sky.